All right, welcome back, guys. So in this video, we're now going to move on and talk about the next primal emotion or primal frequency. That's called anxiety, right? So actually, before I get into it, I just want to mention about primal emotion. Something I think I forgot to mention last video is that primal emotions, when your body charges them, they generally occur, you generally feel them in kind of an instantaneous burst, right? So it feels like a very quick burst of emotion. And I think in the beginning videos, I said that most people probably also think, or also, they also believe, like I did, that emotions generally occur instantaneously. They don't go through a transient charging process, right? And I said that's not true. There are some exceptions where it seems like that's the case, but the general rule is no, that they charge. So I wanted to mention that primal emotions are actually one of those exceptions. When the body is charging something, charging the subconscious, then it is possible for those emotions to come in very quickly and instantaneously. I should also mention that you can charge the subconscious with the mind, and you can also charge it through the body. Now, the body charges the subconscious much quicker than the mind can, right? And that's actually that's actually pretty much the reason why people take drugs. They're taking drugs so that the drugs can charge the subconscious for them, because they don't know how to do it through their mind, and the mind takes much too long anyway, right? So we'll talk more about drugs in chapter 6 and how that works, right? But that basically is the main idea as we get through in chapter 6. But I just want to mention now that when the body charges emotion in terms of the primal emotions, the set that we're going to talk about in this chapter, then the emotions will feel very instantaneous and not like they are still charging anyway. The body could just charge much faster than the mind, but to the conscious mind, it may not seem like it's charging, right? But yeah, primal emotions are one of the exceptions where emotions can charge in a way that seems instantaneous, right? So I just want to get that out the way. I forgot to mention that last video. So, but moving along, the first primal emotion is anxiety, right? So that was the emotion that I was basically referring to in the experience that I spoke about in the prior video. And I was saying I was having panic attacks at my job. So what was really happening when a person experiences anxiety, right? There's also some concern. Some people might say, well, isn't anxiety basically the same thing as fear? No, right? And some people are able to pick up on it. It seems like they're the same thing, but they really aren't. So just going to this first point, what happens when a person has anxiety is that when the negative mind produces a particular intention now remember what he said about attention. So attention has two parts. It's like a sentence. It has two parts. It's like a sentence that the subconscious mind reads. They read the sentence. And in everything the subconscious mind, every sentence the subconscious mind reads that the negative mind says is a command, right? So everything it says interprets as a command. So we said it has a subject part, which is the point of focus, and then it has a command part, which asserts something. So in this case, when you produce an intention that asserts that you're in danger, so you're focused on some particular subject, and the command part of your intention asserts that that subject is a threat to you, which means you're in danger, the subconscious will switch to a very particular frequency that the body recognizes. So in other words, let's say that I see a bear running at me, right? So the bear is a subject. I focus on the bear, and I produce an intention that says this bear, the point of focus, is a threat to me. It's running at me. I'm saying, oh shoot, it's going to kill me or something. The command part of that intention expresses that the bear is a threat. So that intention causes my subconscious to switch to a specific frequency, because if the intention's quantized, the frequency of the subconscious. So once it switches to that frequency, my body, now remember what I said, the body can read whatever frequency your subconscious switches to. That's how it knows what's going on in the world around it. So as soon as I produce that intention, my subconscious switches to a particular frequency. We could call it the fear frequency or the threat frequency. But when it switches to that frequency, the body says, oh, something threatening is happening in the outside world. Now, the body doesn't have the intelligence to truly know that, but it's assessing that based on the frequency that the subconscious switched to. And then what it does is it responds to that frequency with what we generally know as a fight or flight response. And then it charges the emotion of anxiety. So in other words, The subconscious reads the frequency, that's fear or threat frequency, and then it has it induces a physiological response of what we call fight or flight. So I believe cortisol is released, adrenaline's released, so it's a hormonal response that increases your breathing, your blood rate increases. So you're pretty much good. Your body, then once it's on the anxiety frequency, it causes you to feel pretty much everything that we said is associated with subconscious thought. So it's going to cause you to feel the emotion that we call anxiety. And just before going into other things, right now that will kind of give you the difference between what fear and anxiety is. So fear is really an emotion that the mind induces, right? Of something being a threat to you or something, you being in danger in some way. Anxiety is an emotion the body induces. They're almost the same, but they are a little different, right? The mind doesn't induce the anxiety frequency. It induces the fear frequency. But even if it does, the body's just going to respond and start charging the subconscious at the anxiety frequency. So that's why, from the conscious mind, they virtually seem like the same thing. They pretty much always come together, in other words. So, when the body charges the subconscious, so it sends a command to the subconscious, and it tells it to charge up at the anxiety frequency. So you feel the emotion of anxiety. You're going to start imagining things based on that anxiety. So that's natural. You can imagine things based on the thing that's a threat to you. So that is going to affect the vividness of your imagination. And then your transcendental belief, or it's going to alter your perception in terms of imagination, and it's going to alter your perception in terms of belief or what's rational or logical to you. So what that frequency does is it's going to make you feel like fleeing from the threat. So that's why when you have anxiety, it's very hard to face the thing that's causing you anxiety. Your subconscious is compelling your conscious mind to choose to flee and move away from the threat. That seems the most rational and the most logical in that moment, right? And there is creativity, but that's not really useful in terms of the anxiety frequency. So yeah, those are the main components of what happens when your subconscious switches the anxiety frequency. Now, the reason it does this is pretty obvious, but just going to this next point, the threat of some perceived danger to the body is too important to leave to chance. It's too important to leave to chance that the kind of run-on sentence. But the threat of the perceived danger is too important to the body to leave to chance that the conscious mind will make a smart decision to ensure survival. In other words, what I meant to say is that the body can't always rely or trust the conscious mind to make a smart decision when it comes to certain things, right? Certain things are considered to be a higher priority to the body, to the intelligence of the body, to be left to the conscious mind to sort of do the right thing, or what it feels is the right thing. Now, it doesn't have intelligence to truly know what's the right thing, right? But it does want to kind of, what do they say in politics? But put a stub on the scale, right? So it wants to influence the situation a little bit just to make sure the conscious mind doesn't do something stupid, right? And so that's why it charges the subconscious at the anxiety frequency. It compels the conscious mind to find fleeing or running away as the most rational thing to do. And facing the danger is very irrational. So that's why anxiety makes you feel like running away, right? And that probably saves way more lives than it probably creates, how do I say it? It fixes more problems than it creates. Basically something to that effect, right? But yeah, that's basically what's going on with that frequency. Now, did I want to get to this last point already? Was there anything else I wanted to say? Oh yeah, well, I could say that after. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It's not much to explain. It's a lot easier saying this than it was writing in the book, because in the book, everything's so abstract, so it takes a lot to kind of get everything out, but it's much easier speaking, saying this stuff verbally. But the last thing I want to say is that now, because the subconscious is charging from commands from the body, in this case, with primal emotions, sometimes these things can go wrong, or sometimes there's miscommunication, or sometimes something happens in not the right way. usually it's from some fault of the body. Now, sometimes process goes wrong and the body charges anxiety when there's no physical threat of danger. So in the modern world, so this response from the body probably makes a lot of sense, right? Or probably would have made a lot of sense in the traditional world, right? So in the hunter-gatherer societies, you know what I mean? When we were still evolving, and even before that, we were less involved or less evolved, right? And we're just out in the wild, sort of trying to get food. You know what I mean? In those instances, when our conscious mind was had far less intelligence, right? This would have helped us a great deal. In a modern society, we practically don't need this almost at all. Still, we need it, yes, but because people do take stupid risk that will cause their body harm, right? And this prevents them from taking some of those risks. And I mean like physical risk, right? Like, car surfing that some teenagers like to do, stuff like that. Like, this prevents those things. But probably most of the time, this activates when there's absolutely no reason for it, at least as far as physical danger. I do think the body has some vested interest in social circumstances, right? So some scientists will say, they also agree with this, and they say that the body has evolved to express anxiety, but because our society and our intelligence has changed too quickly, the body didn't evolve to keep up with it. And so it's still assessing threats where there isn't one. In turn, it's still assessing physical threats where there isn't one. I don't know that the body is doing that just for physical threats. I think the body has also evolved to produce this, to have this response for social threats too. Your social status is very important in terms of the survival of the species. So it makes sense the body would also have these responses for social threats. So just because it has it doesn't mean it's absolutely doing it for a physical threat. Now, why it's going into fight or flight? Oh yeah, actually, before I move on. So earlier I said it causes you to want to run, but if you do have to fight, your body is prepped for that too with the physiological changes. But anyway, it's why it's still going into fight or flight is really because of how the frequency affects the body. But still, I still think that the body still wants to create probably an uncomfortable experience for the mind to avoid certain social threats. So I still think they're there. But I agree that that's probably not that probably isn't it isn't what the body's supposed to be doing, right? That's not the body didn't evolve to have these fight or flight physiological responses, at least to that intensity to social threats. That actually is a kind of accident in a way. But really where it all comes from is that, again, the body does not have actual intelligence like the conscious mind does. It has a different kind of intelligence. And it's kind of flying blind, right? So it can't really tell what's going on in the outside world. It's just listening to the conscious mind. So when the conscious mind or a negative mind produces an intention of a threat, right, in social circumstances, so like me, let's say I got to give a public speech and I get super nervous. My conscious mind will produce an intention that the speech is a threat. My subconscious switches to a frequency. My body reads that frequency as, to the body, that's going to be the same frequency or virtually the same frequency that I produce when a bear is running at me. It doesn't care what's causing me to produce that frequency. If it reads that frequency, it's going to switch to the anxiety frequency. Now, what I will say is that the body, certain intentions will cause, even in social circumstances, if my intention expresses that this is a social circumstance, I still think the body will be a little bit more primed to say, that's a social circumstance. This is a threat in a social circumstance, even if it's not a physical threat. I'm still going to switch to the anxiety frequency. So I think the body evolved to do that too for social circumstances. But either way, it reads the frequency and it switches to the anxiety frequency. And that's why you feel anxiety. So when people have anxiety or generalized anxiety disorder, right, that's when they feel anxiety pretty much all day. And I was talking a little bit about this in one of my intro videos. What's actually happening is their body has changed in some way, right? Their body changed, and now it's constantly sending a command to the subconscious to keep charging at the anxiety frequency. even when there's no threat present. Like this is supposed to go off after a very short amount of time or strongly reduce. But something happens, we'll talk about it later, certain things that could cause it. But something can happen when your body doesn't stop. It just keeps telling the subconscious to keep charging at the anxiety frequency. And when that happens, then the mind will experience that. And this is what causes generalized anxiety disorder. This is why when a person has anxiety, when a person has anxiety pretty much all day, all the time, which is what a generalized anxiety disorder is, it's like no matter how much they logically know something's not a threat to them, they can't help it, right? They still feel it's a threat to them. They know it's not logically, but they still feel it is at the same time. It doesn't make sense, right? Well, the reason for that is because of the negative mind and the positive mind. It doesn't matter that the negative mind knows it's not a threat. If the positive mind is still charged at the anxiety frequency, it's going to keep compelling the negative mind to perceive something as a threat. It's going to make it perceived. It's going to cause it to perceive it to be rational or logical, to run away from the threat and kind of just stay. And when people have that anxiety, because the subconscious keeps doing that, they end up kind of just staying indoors or in the house, not really going out too much. Excuse me. Because they want to stay away from that threat, even though their conscious mind knows it makes no sense to do that. So part of the way, so that's what I experienced when I had sleep apnea, right? And that was a crazy experience. Although I already knew these principles, I just never experienced anxiety like that. So yeah, that's if you're watching this and you have anxiety, this is what's causing that, and this is why no matter how much you try to convince yourself it doesn't make sense, it just doesn't work. It's because it isn't coming from your conscious mind. It's coming from your body, right? You have to fix the body to get rid of this problem. One thing I will say, and I mentioned it before, is that sometimes the body and mind can be in a tug of war, right? So they're both working through the subconscious. When the conscious mind affects the subconscious, that's going to affect the body, right? We'll talk more about that later. I didn't mention that yet. But when the body affects the subconscious, that affects the mind. And so if the body keeps telling the subconscious to do something, the mind's going to be affected. It's going to experience it. And if it's something negative, that's going to be a problem to the mind. So the mind's going to want the body to stop, right? Many people on a conscious level may not realize this is what's happening. But the conscious mind still wants, if the conscious mind wants the anxiety to stop, it's wanting the body to stop doing this. Now, what they do in psychology or science, whatever. What they do in modern science is a lot of times they'll give you some pill to help you to try to get the body to stop doing what it's doing. There's more to it than that. That's why that doesn't always work, right? Or a person reaches a level where it's like, okay, if they keep giving you pills, it's going to be dangerous. Pills are not always a solution. Like I said, I solved my anxiety using my mind because I knew how to fix it using my mind rather than going through my body. Now, again, I can't give medical advice, so I'm just telling you what I did and what I believe. If you have that problem, you still go see a doctor. But yeah, so I just wanted to get that clear here. There is more to say about that, but I'll talk about that a little later. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So that's anxiety. That's where it's come from. That's where it comes from, and that's how it works. So in the next video, we'll talk about the next primal emotion. Right? So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next video.